We are amazing because our passion is limitless and our drive is intense. Therefore, you will not deny our grind. You are now listening to the Faith, Grind, and Inspire podcast.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Gene Alert. Welcome back to another great episode of Faith, Grind, Inspire podcast. And on today's episode, we have a very, very special guest, my homegirl, power attorney, fellow podcaster, Delisha Grant.
What's up?
What's up?
I'm finally here.
Yes, you're finally
Very
here.
excited.
We're at the Garden.
Yes.
On the Faith, Grind, Inspire podcast. And listen, I was on your show a couple weeks ago, and I was nervous, right? And I don't want you to be nervous.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to make you as comfortable as you make all your guests feel, because I felt super comfortable after
good.
2 minutes.
I mean, I feel like we know each other, so this is going to be a good conversation.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's hard when you're walking in, you don't know exactly what you're walking into. I don't know what you have up your sleeve.
You know what? You are December 26er. You're a grinder, so you're part of the Faith, Grind, Inspire tribe too. So I just want to let the people know tell them who you are.
Oh, you're trying to start the way that I start on the December 26er podcast. Yep. Okay, I see what you're doing here. So, interestingly, the first thing that people generally say about me is that I am an attorney. But before all of that, I am a daughter, a sister, a mentor. I consider myself an advisor outside of being an attorney and an inspirer.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Where are you from?
Originally from Jersey. Monmouth County, Central Jersey, literally in the crease in the state. Grew up near the Jersey Shore in a small town called Tinton Falls, exit 109 on the Parkway. And but I have Jamaican roots on my father's side, Southern roots on my mother's side. And all of those things have sort of come together to make me into a person with an insane work ethic. When you got Southern roots and you have Jamaican roots, you're going to work really, really hard.
You are.
Yeah,
you
for
are.
sure.
You have one job or two?
I stopped counting at about 4. I don't think, literally, even in college, I didn't just have one job. It just, I'm wired for that. So.
Yes. Well, that's what it's supposed to be. I feel like you're supposed to, be empty when you leave.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
People who just have one thing and do one thing for 50 years, to me, is that's not life.
I am not built for that life. And I see it in lawyers who've worked in the same office for literally 4 or 5 decades doing the same work, and I would die on the vine. That is not the life that I envision for myself, but I'm jumping ahead now.
So what made you get into law?
Well, when people ask me that question, I always say, I grew up in the Cosby Show generation. So Claire Huxtable was really my first introduction to a black female powerful attorney who was fashionable and stylish and quick-witted and really intelligent. But my mom says that by the time I was 3 or 4, I had said that there were 2 things that was going to happen. One day I was going to play Carnegie Hall, and also I was going to be a district attorney or a prosecutor, which is interesting because that's the last thing I want to do now. But I knew very early that the law was for me. So everything from the time I started school, literally elementary school, everything was about making sure that I got that law degree one day.
Interesting. Did you ever play at Carnegie? What did she?
No. So at the time I was So at the time I was studying piano.
Okay.
I gave that up at some point, but I'm still most people don't know unless you really have heard every episode of the show that I'm underneath it all a music head, right? So songwriting, all of those things, that is still very much a part of who I am. Yep. That is just not the focus right now. But before I leave this earth, some things are going to go down. Let's just say that.
All right,
yes.
Cool. Well, I have some plugs.
Okay.
I have some plugs, some connections. So if you ever want to do that, let me know.
You have connections everywhere, Gene.
I'm the
literally.
plug, yo.
You are the plug for everything.
I am. People call me for everything.
No, well, first of all, let's just talk about where
some of the things I laugh at.
Yeah, let's just talk about where you're actually recording this show. Most people start a podcast and are in their closet, like I was. You're doing it.
I listened to that episode.
You are doing it.
Listen, I started. It was I felt like I was sneaking in here on Saturdays because that's when I used to record.
Yes, you are the connect for everything.
But it's good to be the plug because when you the plug, people start connecting you with other things.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And that's the cool thing about being an attorney. Because you become the plug for real estate. And even with the podcast, I love, when I first heard your show, I was like, yo, she's brilliant.
Thank you.
Because you're leveraging you but you're creating a brand. So you're going to get other clients because you're going into different industries without being in those industries.
Absolutely.
And you're meeting people. And when you're connecting like-minded people without doing the hard networking.
And you know what's crazy?
I love it.
That with DeMarcus, who's actually here today.
Shout out to
in
him,
the background.
man.
Shout out to my brother, DeMarcus, producer extraordinaire. But one of the things that we often talk about is, I went to undergrad and I never fully enmeshed myself in the undergraduate experience. And it was because I was working like a Jamaican. But I was also at a school where I didn't feel... I won't say that I didn't feel like I belonged, right? Because I knew I belonged there, but it wasn't necessarily my scene. Shout out to University of Pennsylvania, had a great education. But Ivy is an experience in and of itself. So I spent my time off campus a lot, working, doing other things. And I didn't realize until I got older the power of that network. Like the people that you're in Econ 101 with your freshman year of college can be the people that invest in your venture years later. And that's something that a lot of folks understand, and often people who don't look like us know that that's the foundation for the people that you can call on to really partner with you later and collaborate. So I felt like I missed the boat back then. But December 26er has become the college experience that I never had. So now I'm building a network by doing work that I'm very passionate about and featuring stories that I care about and telling our stories about how we're blazing trails, but also building on a Rolodex that I had from earlier in my legal career, but now it is just blown up in a way that I can't even explain. That I'm becoming, and DeMarcus is becoming, the people who got a guy for everything or have a woman, for everything. Yeah. So it's been great.
So where did this podcasting come from for you? Like, how did you get introduced to even the podcast world?
So I started listening to podcasts really early. I love stories, right? So I don't watch a lot of TV, but documentaries, on it. Like, I'm all about, especially if it's about us. It could be music, sports, doesn't matter. I love to see how people got to where they are. And documentaries often work to focus on the not so pretty parts as well, as opposed to glazing over that, which is what happens sometimes in human interest stories on mainstream television. So I always had an interest in that. Got into the podcast game early in terms of listening to like the Tim Ferriss show and how I built this, and back even when it was like Blog Talk Radio, I was listening to stuff back then, right? These just random shows.
Yeah.
But the way December 26er started, and shall we get into how the name came about?
Yeah, okay. I know it. But...
Yeah, you know, of course, because you're the tribe. You're a part of the tribe. You've listened to every show, so you know. But for those that don't know, really quick, as a child growing up, Christmas was my absolute favorite holiday, and it had nothing to do with the gifts because it's not like we grew up with a whole lot, but it was all about that time with family and the music and the decorations and the food and how festive it was. And my grandparents always had the massive tree with like the old school 80s lights and all that stuff. And then on December 26th, it would just be over. And I would have the post-holiday blues after the gifts are opened and everybody goes home. And I wouldn't get excited again until my birthday rolled around in February, less than 2 months later. And as an adult, I started using this term, December 26th syndrome, to describe those periods of life where we don't quite know what's next. We're trying to figure it out. And as really high achievers, we often have a laser-like focus when we are working towards something, the launch of a brand, finishing a book, graduating, getting that job. But when that chapter turns and things are a bit stagnant, or you've come through some form of failure or disappointment, or you just don't know what you should be doing next, we can often fall into a state of despair and, lack motivation in some way. But this concept of the 26er are the visionaries, the people who know that they have big things to do on this planet, but may struggle with that. They may struggle with keeping up that level of motivation when things are not moving as quickly as they would like. So, but they know there's a better way, and they desire to maximize potential each and every day. They intend to manifest and realize dreams even when things are not going the way they want it to go. And that's why the tagline of the show is "Be extraordinary on an ordinary day."
I love
That's the message. So we feature people like you who literally embody that concept every single day, being extraordinary, even when everything around you is ordinary. So that's what it's about, right? So at the time when I decided to conceptualize this into a brand, I was working as a startup lawyer for folks in entertainment, media, technology, etc. So I would literally counsel people every day who were struggling with this, right? Creatives, right-brained people who really had great ideas, may have seen success at the height of the music industry, but things had changed. And what was hard for me about that is the level of depression that I would encounter. Just people who were so destroyed spiritually from what they had lost or things just not going their way. And I thought to myself, okay, part of who I am is to tell you how to get your contracts right and how to set your business up right. But a whole other part of me is wanting to make sure that your spirit is right too, and making sure that your emotions are in the right place. I'm not a therapist, but how can I start to highlight the things and the difficulties that are going on with a lot of the people that I see every day? Like these are my people, right? And so December 26th started as a blog.
Interesting.
Literally started as a blog, like a long form blog, but with the same concept back in 2013. I launched it on the anniversary of my grandmother's death in tribute to her, and did that for a while, and then coincidentally went through my own valley experience where I was questioning everything. My choice to be a lawyer, the path that I was on via entrepreneurship, my personal life, my romantic life, everything. And I was like, I can't encourage anybody, right? Because I can't even encourage myself. So I took a step back, left the content up. People were emailing me, like sending me private messages like, I've never read anything like this blog, and where are you? And I couldn't find the motivation and the encouragement to continue. So I went about dismantling my life and rebuilding it again. And in that process, I started speaking about my experience, going out, talking to folks on panels, which you know how we met. And someone else, as much as I listened to podcasts, I hadn't thought about it. And then someone else said to me, you know, you should start a podcast. You should go back to the December 26th brand, but start it as a podcast. And I was like, who wants to listen to me talk? And the person who told me, he was like, just start this by myself and see what happens. And then called my brother, DeMarcus, and said, hey, you want to produce a show? And he's like, what does that even mean? Like, what does that entail? I don't know if I can produce a show. And I literally pulled a job description for a podcast producer off the internet and sent it to him, like, tell me you can't do this. And he's like, I could do this. And that is literally how the December 26th podcast was born, almost 2 years ago. It'll be 2 years and 2 weeks.
A little over 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yo, man. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I found you because I knew you. We just came off a panel, and then you had Jeff on.
Yep.
Early on, and when I listened,
Jeff was our first guest.
Yeah, he was your first guest. Yeah, and I listened to the podcast, and I was like, "Yo, this is different." But then I went back and I listened to the ones that you had by yourself.
These like 20-minute micro episodes with like me in sweatpants at my house, just recording. Yeah.
Well, see, I pictured you with like, you know, full attorney type of gear on, like, you know, in like your office, you know? Yeah. So, but I was just hooked. You know, every Tuesday, like I said, I was tuned in. Oh, I still am. And I think I'm probably like one of the first people that listen.
You are.
Because I wake up at like 5:30. So I listened to it, and it was surprising that I heard mine, you know?
Right. And I didn't even realize that like DeMarcus didn't even tell you it was coming out, but I actually liked the surprise element.
Yeah,
you know?
He probably did. But during that time, my emails are crazy, right? So for that period of time in my life, like I had like 4 deaths in the family. We were going through so much.
Wow.
And so I didn't see any email. So if he did email me, it's not his fault, you know, like, because I didn't reply. You know?
And we always wonder, like, so the episodes for the technical piece of behind the show and how it works is the episodes are uploaded and scheduled to drop 3 a.m. Eastern time. So that's midnight California time. So the earliest possible time that the episode is released on the same date across the globe, right? And I get up and I usually check the stats around 5:36, and I'm like, who are these people who listen in that 3 a.m. to like 5:30 time frame? And you are one of them.
Yeah.
You and like some people in South Africa and Australia and some other places. We have no idea who these people are and how they discovered us across the globe, but you guys are hardcore.
Yeah.
We appreciate the support.
And here's the thing about podcasting, right? You have one thing that you have is consistency. Consistency in your voice, consistency with the messaging, the questioning, like even what sometimes when you have a different type of guest throw it off. I love that.
Yeah.
Like you had one guest, she was the
archivist.
Yes.
Sarita Gates.
Yes.
Shout out to Sarita.
I like that episode because it threw it all off. Because for a couple of weeks, it was like the same type of person. And then she came, and I was like, whoa, you know?
And Sarita brought all the energy.
She brought all the energy. And so I said, all right, cool. I got to let it cool down a little, and then I'm going to come on.
But you know, it's like, but here's what's so crazy. Like, she was so much fun, and I love just her bravado and her swag. But I got a text from one of my friends, like, oh, the episode was so great. She was hilarious. But the fact that she was an archivist tells me that this is a path my 4-year-old daughter might take, because her 4-year-old daughter likes to collect things, right? And she's has some challenges that she's working through, what have you. But to me, these are things that I don't think about, right? And how the episodes might inspire people. And this is why I'm always encouraging people to just do what you do. I think sometimes we try so hard to fit it into how we want it to be received, like trying to fit this brand into the way we want people to consume it, not realizing that byproducts will be people getting something out of it that you didn't even realize or want them to get out of it. So I really, and as a perfectionist, that's not easy, but I have really worked to say, this is what the content is, right? And somebody somewhere will be able to glean something from that. Even if I'm like, it's a little off kilter for us, it works. Somehow it works.
Yeah. You just got to let go, let God.
Yep, exactly.
You know? And you had... last year was amazing for you because you had 2019. You had a backpack giveaway. You did something else like a fundraiser.
Yep.
You guys you had your brother on. And those episodes I really like too because you get to hear the voice behind. And I actually stole that idea. We had Bree on, but Bree doesn't want to be on camera, so Bree will be like talking in the background.
We're all about theft of ideas. Please take whatever you can.
So, but but yours was really in depth because it was like you and him talking about it, and he was sharing. So I got to know a little bit about him. So when I actually met him and actually spoke to him, it was like we had like a 3-hour conversation.
And what's crazy, like, and DeMarcus has a great radio voice.
He does,
and
man.
B, a great sense of humor, right? And lastly, he just is an encyclopedia of random information. So he makes for like great on-air talent, which is why I'm trying to get him to come on the show more.
Yeah. But I love what you're doing, man.
Thank you.
Like, so what do you feel like the challenging part is of being a December 26er, or being a grinder or whatever it is, but or what have you seen the challenge been throughout, like people you've interviewed?
I will say, and I won't just leave it to people that I've interviewed. I'll leave it to myself, my own experience, and the people that I know. When you are a 26er, right, our visions are so large, and it's not necessarily an arrogance, but you just know, like I'm on this planet to make an impact that is unprecedented. And oftentimes your mind and your motivation is like 10 steps ahead of what's happening in reality. And one of the things that I love about the show is that we bring on folks who are at various stages of their journey. There are people who are in this 110% full-time as an entrepreneur with a very diversified portfolio in terms of what they're into. But then we also have people that come on, they're like, I have a day job and I'm building this thing on the side. And the important part to remember is that my life may not look like at a 360-degree view what I want it to look like, but I am consistently building over here. And I'm a firm believer that God's timing is perfect and things will unfold as they need to and as they're supposed to. But often for the December 26er, because your brain is going and you have this vision, it's hard to rest in that when your life doesn't look the way you want it to look, And to be completely honest, when I started December 26er as a blog, I was a full-time entrepreneur. I was in it. Like, I had built this life, like, because I was like, this is what I want to do. I'm making it happen, and that's it, right? And there are things that had to change in my life because it wasn't quite working. And I sort of became this hybrid who was like in corporate, but also doing entrepreneurship stuff, and we can get into that or not. But but one of the things that I like to put out there, and I want people to know, is you have to be able to differentiate your profession as your purpose and your profession serving a purpose for a season in your life. And it's not always the same, right? Because there are things like I'm good at being a lawyer, but being an attorney is serving a purpose for my life in this season. It doesn't mean that I'm going to retire from this 20 years. It's a means to an end. It helps to build a network. I'm sewing into people that I believe in, right? I'm utilizing my skills. I'm also hopefully contributing to raising the profile of what we're capable of as people of color. But this is very much serving a purpose. And where I got derailed was trying to make the thing that I'm talented at make it my purpose and having it fill that void. And that's not what it was meant to do. And I think we do that a lot because we're good at something, because it feels safe. We try to fit that square peg in a round hole as the God-given thing that we're meant to do in perpetuity. And it always feels like a push, like you got to push to do it as opposed to a pull. Shout out to the iconic Reggie Osei, who said that on the Combat Jack podcast. He said being a lawyer always felt like a push, but being a podcaster felt like a pull. And that's the thing that I want to encourage people. It's very difficult when your entire life doesn't look like the things that you're passionate about and that you want to do, but it doesn't mean where you are now in your career and your profession is what you're meant to do forever. But see it for what it is. And when you don't see it for what it is, you start to have an emotional reaction to things not panning out the way you want them to, because you're trying to make it the purpose.
You're trying to make it the purpose.
And that's not it.
Ooh.
I gave you that nugget for free.
Yeah. Ooh. Because it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. So many people are caught up in this, and, I teach in middle schools, right? And when I go in, you see these kids that, they're forming.
Yep.
And especially 8th graders, 7th graders, especially 7th graders, their parents already telling them, this is what you're going to be. This is what you're going to do. And they're fighting it already, but I really like this, but my mom is telling me I have to do this. And the pressure, you see the pressure on these kids. And growing up, and when they finally figure out their purpose, it's sort of not too late, but they're already adults. They're already adults. They already graduated college. They're already
resources.
All their resources. They know they can't pay $200,000 a year. $200,000 for college. They're like, I have to do what my parents. Because I have to go to college, so I have to do what my parents told me to do because I want them to pay for it.
Exactly.
So, but then once you graduate, all right, 2 days in the workforce, they're like, wait.
Right. How many people do you know right now who are unhappy in their given job, like that they went to school for, planned for?
80% of them.
Yeah.
And out of those 80% of the people, I would say 60% of those people are not even working in the field that they graduated with.
Exactly. Exactly. My whole plan in college and law school was to be a corporate lawyer. That is what I was like. I'm on planet to do this. I'm a good negotiator. I like contracts. If you would have told me that 10 years in that I literally want to stab myself in the eye. If I have to look at another contract, I'm gonna lose. And I'm still good at it. And there are parts of it that I enjoy, right? Yeah. So there are parts I feel like on the negotiation front, you're just not going to out negotiate me, right? Yeah. So there are parts that I get a high from. Yeah. But when it's time to paper that, you've done enough that you've seen contracts, those red lines and arguing over shall versus will. That does not get me out of bed in the morning. Yeah. I know lawyers who it does. For me, it serves a purpose. And how I'm able to differentiate the two is that the things that I am purposed to do for the remainder of my life, I'm actively doing as well. It may not be the main thing, and it's a sacrifice because you have to expend a lot of energy to juggle all these balls, as I'm sure you know. But that feeds my spirit in a way that I have an emotional detachment from the other work, where it's something that I have to do. It's not going to be forever, but I'm still doing it right now. And I'm finding gratitude in what it serves for me. And I'm finding gratitude in what I bring to it, the talents that I can lend and how I can help people. But because I have this other piece where I'm literally feeding my spirit and my purpose, I'm unbothered by a lot of what happens in the thing that's serving a purpose.
What popped up in my mind was totally different. I mean, the next question is going to go.
Go ahead. Go for it.
So how do you find a challenge, right? Because do you find a challenge meeting other men or other men that understand this mindset?
Yes.
Because I do. And I get it, you know? And so, and I embrace it because my wife has that same mindset and vision. But I think it's hard now.
It's very hard.
You know, to find that type of person that understands it. You know, so what are your thoughts about that? You know, because even a couple weeks ago, I went to a boxing fight, and I was just looking at the caliber, you know, of men out there, right? And I was just like, yo, it must be so challenging.
It's hard. It's hard. Yeah.
Because you have some men that are, and shout out to all my fellas out there, man, but there's a lot of black women that are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
A lot of females of color that are like running this country, like running it. And so you have to have a certain mindset and a certain, like, what you learned growing up of being, yo, I'm the man, I'm the breadwinner. You're probably not going to be the breadwinner anymore. No, seriously. You're probably not. And these women are making 7 figures. How are you going to make $1 million a year when she's making $1 million? Like, you know, and for her to make $1 million a year or $600,000 a year, to find another man that's making $600,000 a year that is, say, 35, no kids, never been married, don't have no control issues. Like,
say that again.
Yo, I'm telling you. And, you know, because you see it. I tell my wife, because my wife is like, well, I could get married tomorrow again if I wanted to. I'm like, really?
Listen,
I'm like, yo, you go try that.
Yeah.
I'm like, you go try that. You know, but it's just jokes. But so talk about that.
Yeah. So, and in the spirit of full disclosure, this is the area in terms of, I feel like every area of my life, I bring a level of consistent positivity, perspective, drive, like find a way or make one, right? When it comes to romantic partnership, it is the area that I have to make a concerted effort every day to stay positive about, because I tend to move through life feeling like the rules don't apply to me. Like, you know, yeah, things are difficult, but I can make it happen. I can make it happen. I'm actually writing a whole book about this.
Nice.
I had to take a moment where I had to realize, like, this is something that is outside of my control. Despite what Steve Harvey might have said, all the other experts who say this is what you need to do to get and keep a man, it is really nuanced at this age and stage and where I am in my life for a lot of other, as you mentioned, professional black women who are doing well for themselves and outpacing, unfortunately. It takes energy for me to stay positive about it because my experiences have not been positive. And I think, what happens often is that we are really powerful in the world. I'm in a profession where it requires me to be aggressive, right? That I have a strong personality.
Yeah.
I am building a podcast and building a brand that requires a grind and a level of blind ambition, right? Just turning a deaf ear to a lot of things. DeMarcus and I, sewed into 600 kids this year. Where do you think those 600 backpacks came from? Like, and all the money to do that. Because it wasn't just the bags. It was carnival games and food. We fed the community and a DJ and bouncy houses and all those things. The level of aggression that it took to actually pull that off and stick-to-itiveness, if I can make up a word. So when a guy comes in, if he's not secure in his ego and who he is and what he's been put on this planet to do, because it doesn't have to be the same thing I am, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And I think often... I don't want you to get the not all men responses, but I'll just say anecdotally, in my experience, a lot of men fall for the facsimile of who they think you are based on what you've accomplished, and don't take the time to really pull back the layers and get to know you, because there's a vulnerability underneath all of that. Who I am publicly is not completely different than who I am privately, but there's a vulnerable piece to me, right? And a nurturer and all those things. But you got to create the safe space for that to come out.
Exactly.
And oftentimes, a lot of times, people can come into it already feeling like they're competing with you. So that control element, trying to find ways to cut you down or constructively criticize about what they think is wrong with you, without just creating the space to get to know you for who you are.
And fellas, I'll give you some advice, right? Because my wife is a powerful woman too. And you have to come into a relationship, because we've been together 14 years, married for 10. And what she did in the beginning, because not saying she made more than me, you know, like, but there's sometimes where when I become an entrepreneur, when I became a full-time entrepreneur and I left my job, she did.
Yeah.
She did, you know, and she was holding it down for a while because I needed to build this ACA thing up.
Yeah.
And so I lost. But the thing is, I knew first, one thing she said to me was, I don't want a weak man. I want a strong man. And I said, what is your definition of a weak and a strong man? Is it money? Or she's like, no, it has nothing to do with money.
Right.
It's conversation, is, you know, knowing, like, there's certain things that have to be done, and there's certain things that you do, certain things I do, whatever. And we became this partner. And we established partnership early.
Yeah.
Versus I'm competing with you.
Exactly.
You can't get into a relationship because we're in high. If you're making $600,000 a year, you're competing with someone. Like, you're not just somewhere. You're competing with especially in New York. There's a level of competition, even if you don't want to call it competition, but it's there, right?
Right.
To make that type of money. Right. If you're
let me just say, you got my family calling me, asking me to borrow because they think that I make $600,000 a year. I don't know who Gene is talking about. It's not quite me. Let me just.
I'm just throwing out numbers, right? So let's scale it down. I say, 200. Let's say 100. Whatever it is.
I do well for myself. But I will tell you that my FA was like, my financial advisor was like, listen, this next jump for you, like that's it. Like, you're out of here, stratosphere. So yeah, we getting there. But anyway.
No, yeah. I'm just throwing out big numbers, right? Because we gotta think big, right? But anyway, so you're making, say, $300,000 a year. Now the person's doing 300, and the other person's, say, doing 150. Yeah. Right. So you're still making more, right? Double. You have to come in as a partnership from jump.
Absolutely.
Right. So we're making together X amount, exactly. 500, yes, right? Versus I make this, you make that, you do this, I do this. Now we're competing. You can't compete. You have to be able to partner, come together, collab, buy something together, exactly, do things together. And I think that's the problem. I think a lot of people are competing with each other, and you're such in an environment of competition, where it's like, as soon as you come in and you said it, like, I'm in an aggressive space, but you're not an aggressive person at all for me, right? On a personal level. But someone maybe hearing your podcast and knowing your story, if they listen to your podcast, I think they would approach you different.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing. Like,
I think they would.
I'm glad
now,
you said this.
Knowing that your brother, I hear the podcast too, and your brother is very protective.
Yeah,
so that's a whole other story. So they might not want to approach you on a certain level because of him.
But this is the point.
Right?
This is the point I try to make. Like, there's so much in the public domain about me at this point that, like, and people try to hook me up all the time. Yeah. Because, people who know me well are like, why are you single? So they try to hook me up, but they just hit the highlights with people. Yeah. She went to Penn undergrad, GW Law, worked in corporate, she been Fortune 500, all this other stuff, started a nonprofit, runs a podcast. And people hear the highlights and they're like, oh no, like, she's out of my league. Right?
She's out of my league.
Without ever getting to know me as a person. And I've had a couple interesting experiences, but I'll just do two anecdotally. First, I met these sisters on vacation, and they're like, midway through the vacation, they're like, we have somebody we want you to meet. Like, we feel like you would be great. He's looking for his Michelle Obama. Like, this could work. Obama, whatever, right? So they pull up his profile. I'm like, handsome guy, got it together, has a couple of degrees. And he got my IG, which, if anybody knows me well, and if you listen to the show, you know this, one of my greatest flaws is that I'm terrible with self-promotion. Yeah, right? You don't promote. I don't promote anything, which is a part of one of my major goals for 2020. So if you're looking at my social media, that is literally just vignettes of who I am. Like, just random, glimpses into my life. But he took that, texted them and said, is out of my league, and would not even meet me. And I can't tell you, and this is somebody who was educated, like, had it together. Wow. And I can't tell you how many times that has happened to me, and to friends and colleagues, female colleagues, where people, they take the things that you have accomplished, and they do see it as, subconsciously a competition. Like, she's beating me, and my ego can't handle the fact that she's beating me, so I don't even want to approach or explore if anything else is there. And a lot of women that I know have so much to give, and my girlfriends and I are very close, and we offer a village and support system to each other. We're giving it to each other. My girlfriends are there for me for everything. Same. I, send them Valentine's Day gifts, the whole nine. But I see these women who I know would make incredible wives and mothers, but are not even given the opportunity for candidacy because of what somebody perceives as the sum total of who they are.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts.
As I was thinking about it, I was trying to think of my relationship, right? And I was thinking, there's times when you're going, as a man, you go through some times in your life where it's tough and challenging. And I'm not going to front. Like, I think at a point where I was like, yo, my wife is beating me.
Yeah.
Like, and now, but I had to like check myself. And also I think something else in the man's life, he has to have his father in his life. He has to, or a mentor,
a male figure.
They have to have someone that they could see, like, all right, this guy, he did it. He did this, so if he could do it, I had my dad. So I saw my father do it.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? I have to be strong like him. And I can't think like this, because he taught me partnership. He didn't think competition. So I had to like get this out of my mind. Like, yo, I'm not competing against her. Like, why? Because I would say that to her. I would start arguments, because I knew I could control that argument.
Yes.
If I make her mad, I could bring you down to where I am.
Oh man, like, seriously. Okay, can we take it off? I'm gonna take it off for you.
Yeah.
We're like admitting that, because I can't tell you how many like situations I've been in, relationships, where I feel like somebody is goading me to argue. And if you know me well, you know what I do professionally and who I am personally, very different. So I don't like to argue. Like, it's not fruitful. You can have a healthy disagreement, but I don't like to straight up argue. And I've been in situations where somebody has pushed me to the point where I react, and the response has been, finally. Because they feel like I'm off my game then, and now I've come down a few notches, which is crazy to me.
It is crazy.
But I understand it at the same time.
But it's the ego. It's the male ego.
Yeah.
And once, and you need, I have a spiritual person, Pastor A.R. Bernard. I listen to him. I understand. Like, I take it in.
Yeah.
And for the fellas out there listening to this, man, I'm not bashing you guys, but I'm just letting you know, like, you got to leave your ego at the door. Because I know a lot of men that are looking for their Michelle Obamas, right? I know a lot of men that want a family or want kids and want to be married, right? But it's difficult because, before, when we were growing up, they used to be like, oh, the grass is greener on the other side. But now it's like Instagram and social media. You're like, wow, I see the grass now.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But you have
in Technicolor.
Yeah, but those are all filters. Those are all, there's so many different things that go into play. You don't really know what's going on. So I think you guys need to, like, not you guys, but people need to, like, put their ego to the side and get to know a person, not professionally, personally. Ask them questions. My first question for my wife was based on, like, family. Nothing. I didn't know what she did for like the first 3 months.
Right.
Like, we didn't talk about. We were talking about. I don't think she even asked me. Right. What I really did for work. Like, it was more of like, let me know how you think. How like, are you around your family? What do you do for Christmas? Like, what do you do for the holidays? Do you go travel? Do you, like, certain things to know Gene and Gaina, like, and I think a lot of guys now, because of the level of competition that social media makes and like society's putting on us, that pressure, I think that pressure is letting the men, like, you have to stand strong.
Right.
Like, I have to do this, and I have to compete with you.
Yep.
So,
And
fellas, you do not have to compete with the ladies.
seriously. But one of the things that I've been working on too is because I know that, you know, I'm going to be 38 in not even 2 months. Whoa. But so I've been living this independent life for a very long time, and I come from a long line of independent women, so I can exude that. So my default is not to ask for help, right? And it's not because, though people try to put this label on a lot of us, I don't need a man. It's not that. It's just I've been predisposed to that, and I'm conditioned to do those things. So I need someone to extend grace to me, to know that, like, I'm so used to that that's my default setting, and it might take some time for me to find the right happy medium where you feel like you play a crucial role in my life as well. But just the way that I have to extend grace to me, one of the things that I've been working on is extending grace to men, because they're also trying to figure it out. So a lot of times our default setting is to just react to the self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, the minute a glimpse of who you perceive men to be comes out, it's like, see, I knew. They're always like, and men do it to us as well. So one of the things that I've been working on is, you know, they talk about the 80-20 rule in marriage, where, you know, you're not going to get 20% of 20% is not going to be what you need it to be. I've sort of flipped that on its head. So for me, I call it the 3-to-1. So when I meet someone, for every one thing that irks me or I feel like is not quite right, I try to identify 3 positives.
Okay.
Right? Because I am flawed. I'm deeply flawed. I'm not trying to say that I have all this figured out. So I try to make it an exercise to say, for every one thing that I feel like could be problematic here, except for like the major deal breakers, right? For every one thing, what are 3 things that I see here that are positives, that serve as pluses in the situation? And if that equation is not adding up, then that's a different conversation. But that's what I've been working on. And I would encourage my sisters to do that. You know, extend grace to yourself as you try to figure out how to need someone, and give up some of that control, but also extend that grace to the man as well.
And you said something which is, and it's something for my sisters out there. You got, you know, there's a chapter in my book, Single Man, Married Man, be his partner, not his boss, right? And when you know, you're a boss at work, like when you get home, try to be a partner. Like, don't tell him what to do. He should just do it. Right? And don't let him know, like, I don't need you. Right? Say, you know, do something, like, make him feel part of it. Because when a person feels like you're roommates, or, you know, you're here for just to accomplish a certain task, a job, fulfill something, like give you a baby.
I was about to say, like, the whole, like, you're just a donor, because that energy does come out. That energy does come out.
You can't make a man feel like that or say things like that, because women's your voices, your words are very powerful, and you can't hurt us physically,
right?
But emotionally, like when you say something to a man, it stays with him, and it's like it's like this drill that never stops. And every time you close your eyes, you think about, like, and it just keeps drilling at you, and you're like, oh my God. And so that's when men start doing crazy stuff,
right?
You know, and then it hurts, and it starts to cycle over again. So I don't know, man. Like, this wasn't a relationship podcast, but
we've been left, but it's fine.
Yeah. But it was just something I wanted to know, and I wanted to talk about, because it was something that you always ask certain females on your show, but they never, like, give the answer that I was like waiting for. But you gave it, so
see,
I'm happy.
and it's what I try to draw out of when
what
come
you
on
try
the
to
show.
draw out of it.
But now I just answered it myself.
So all right, we have to have you back on here, right? But where can people find you?
So where can they find me? So right now I'm sort of hiding behind the December 26er brand.
I see that.
So
that's why I tagged you in the post.
Yes. So you can find the show and everything about the show and my bio by going to December26er.com. On all social media platforms and everywhere you get your podcasts, we are December 26er. So it's literally the word December 26ER. My private IG, which I do accept people sometimes, is DJG Law. But there is a public IG that exists that we will start posting posting to very soon, and that's Delisha Grant. So that's coming. So we got a bunch of content that we're loading over the holidays, and that will be all these nuggets you heard on the show, where I'll start to release my little 1-2 minute vlog snippets and all that great stuff. So it's coming, and the book is coming next year as well. So
that's it. I love it.
That went quick. I feel like we could have spoken for like a much longer, but we're gonna make it happen.
We might have to.
We can do a part 2.
Yeah, we definitely do the part 2. We definitely do the part 2.
All right.
So, guys, I want to say thank you.
Thank you
for coming on to the show. Thank you for being so great, and I love the energy. I want to thank all our followers, our Instagram people, our subscribers, our listeners. Thank you, Tim, Brianna, for producing the show with us. Thank you, DeMarcus, for being a guest producer today, right? And so every Wednesday, catch us. I want you guys to follow December 26er. On Tuesdays, you listen to her show. On Wednesdays, you listen to my
Wednesday.
show. Yeah. Create a routine. I don't care how busy you get. You have to be able to listen to podcasts because you learn.
Absolutely.
Right? And so, anyway, so keep grinding, keep shining, keep going no matter what. God bless. Peace.
Peace.